I'm sure every single person who stumbles across this video has once dreamed about giving everything up and living in nature. Now, the thought is nice, but the reality is different, and romanticising something you actually know very little about can be seriously dangerous. In July of 2023, the bodies of two sisters, Rebecca and Christine Vance, and Rebecca's 14-year-old son, were discovered at a remote campsite in Colorado's Gunnison National Forest. Their attempts to live off-grid ended in tragedy, highlighting the perils of wilderness survival without adequate preparation. But what exactly led to this point? This is a tale of desperation, hope, and death in the wilderness. But first, a quick message from today's sponsor. When researching stories like the tragic case of the Vance family, I rely on thoroughly researched news articles and online archives. This is where Surfshark VPN comes in. I often come across news articles and sources that are restricted or geo-blocked in my region. Surfshark allows me to change my virtual location so I can access important reports and coverage that would otherwise be unavailable in the UK. But this doesn't just apply to news websites. You can use Surfshark VPN to access Netflix from anywhere in the world, unlocking a vast library of content no matter where you are, which is perhaps my favourite feature. That is just one of the many benefits. When I'm travelling or working away from home, Surfshark keeps my data secure on public Wi-Fi, protecting me from hackers and snoops who might be lurking on unsecured networks. But what is a VPN, you ask? A virtual private network encrypts your internet connection and hides your IP address, keeping your online activity safe and private. And trying Surfshark is risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so why not give it a shot? Go to my link below for 4 extra months of Surfshark, and thank you for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get right into it. Rebecca and Christine Vance were sisters from Colorado Springs who shared a close, inseparable bond throughout their lives. The two had always lived together bar 2 brief stints in their life, and to many, they were more than just siblings. They were companions and confidants who leaned on each other through life's ups and downs, in which both sisters had many. Their relationship was so close that Christine's friends often described them as being like twins, with Becky, the older of the two, taking on a more dominant, protective role. This protective nature seemed to have started at a young age when Becky was just 5 and Christine was 3, after their mother left their father. Growing up, the girls lived in a modest ranch house in Colorado Springs. They shared a basement with their stepsister Travala, who was 2 years younger than Christine. Travala was more rowdy than the others, and her and Christine would often get into trouble with each other. Becky, however, was different. She was more reserved and more serious, preferring to focus on work. Whilst Christine socialised and went out with friends, Becky remained dedicated to her studies and work, earning near-perfect grades. Travala, who initially found Becky intimidating, would later describe her as mysterious and privately powerful, someone who wasn't quick to trust and who could hold a grudge for a long time. The 3 sisters, despite their different personalities, continued to live together into adulthood. After high school, Becky and Christine both got jobs at the Atmel Corporation, where they worked together. Their lives remained simple and centered around their shared home. Becky and Christine's mother worked various jobs, including at an Air Force Base commissary, a gas station, and in retail. Their stepfather, Edward, stayed home cooking meals and caring for the family, though he drank heavily at times. Becky was very close to her mother, who died of cancer in 2007, a loss that deeply affected her. After her death, the 2 sisters remained living with their stepfather. Travala had moved out. In 2008, Becky became pregnant by her co-worker, Eric Burden. However, Eric quickly realised that Becky did not want a relationship, and she kept much of the pregnancy hidden from him. He didn't even realise she had given birth, finding out later in the day. Becky hadn't called or listed him as a father on the birth certificate. Becky named her new child Talon. Eric's mother, Marilyn, would look after Talon regularly when he was growing up, and she absolutely adored him. Talon thrived in school, earning straight A's and enjoying soccer and music. In 2019, Becky and Christine's stepfather died, leaving them alone in the house. A year later, Talon's school shut down due to the COVID-19 pandemic. By August 2020, Becky had quit her job and had become increasingly secretive, heavily influenced by conspiracy theories she found online. She spent her days reading about the Great Reset, deep state control, and apocalyptic scenarios, which fueled her growing paranoia. She became absorbed in survivalist content, particularly geared toward mothers, focusing on preparing for societal collapse and the dangers of trusting others. Her stepsister Travala noticed her disconnect, but there wasn't much she could do. As Talon's school reopened in 2021, Becky kept him isolated, forbidding him from social media and limiting his interactions with other people. Though he had few playdates, his social life was limited, and Becky's rules became stricter. Eric and Travala was worried about Talon's lack of social skills and the relationship between him and his mother. Even Christine voiced her concerns against her protective behaviour, but when she voiced her concerns, she was quickly put back into place. Becky had always been the alpha in their relationship, and this was never going to change. Then, in 2021, the call came. Christine called Travala. She said, "You would never guess what Becky wants to do. She wants to live off-grid." Travala replied, "Wait, what? Are you kidding me?" She was not kidding. At the start, it was clear that Christine did not want to live off-grid. She was worried about it, but Becky would eventually convince her, scaring Christine into believing that it would be best for her. After a few months, Christine would also talk about conspiracy theories and how living off-grid would be for the best. Travala even offered the two of them her off-grid camper van to go and live in, just to try it out, but they declined. Becky had told Talon about their plan and that he had to keep it a secret. Then one day in late July of 2022, Christine told her co-workers they were moving away and she had to quit her job. Travala knew about the plans, but she was powerless to stop them. The night before the trio were planning to leave, she sent them a text message saying, "I just want to say once again before I lose communication with you guys since you are leaving tomorrow, I love you, and Becky, and Talon, and please be safe." On August the 1st, 2022, the three left for the wilderness. They drove west, 3.5 hours to the Gunnison National Forest. This forest spans a large area and is known for its rugged terrain, diverse wildlife, and beautiful mountain views, making it a popular spot for outdoor recreation like hiking, fishing, and camping. The area is also very isolated, offering the kind of off-grid experience that the Vance sisters were looking for. They set up camp near the Gold Creek campground, a more secluded area of the forest. I will reiterate, none of them had any experience living in the wild, but Becky thought Talon would be safe there. After she had left, no one could get in contact with them. To say the Vance family were unprepared would be a massive understatement. They had 2 life straws, some tarp, an $80 tent, and sleeping bags, along with some other equipment. They began building a shelter by cutting tree trunks and putting them together next to a dugout hillside for a sidewall and roof. The shelter was just tall enough to sit in and their wilderness journey began. No one knows what happened in the first 2 months, but in October, the family drove into Gunnison, bought a campfire stove, food, mattress, and toilet paper before returning to their campsites. Freezing temperatures swept in later in October, and along with that came the snow. The trio would have been freezing. The following is the most likely scenario of what happened. Due to starvation, dehydration, and hypothermia, each of them would have been very delirious. It is believed that Talon succumbed to hypothermia first and died. The 2 sisters then moved his body outside, not far from the tent. Becky then died, leaving Christine on her own. Christine, who had never left her sister's side, zipped herself up in a sleeping bag and waited for death. The trio had been long dead by the time their bodies were found, which was on July the 9th, 2023, nearly a year after they had left for the wilderness. They were found by a hiker who, after finding one of the bodies, called the Gunnison County Sheriff's Office. He described the body as being a mummy. The next morning they ventured to the camp. The mummy was the body of Talon. They found the bodies of Christine and Becky when they opened the tent. Trash surrounded the bodies, with mounds of toilet paper and waste by a nearby tree. There were wrappers for granola bars, ramen and juice, empty cans of sausages and soup, a pile of hair, a fish pattern blanket, and the keys to their car. Detectives said that they believed the family were alive throughout most of the winter, perhaps making it to December, and they clearly had no experience in wilderness survival. Calls were made to family members, Travala saying she knew what it was straight away after hearing it was from the police department. Christine, who once weighed over 200 pounds, weighed only 96. The cause of death for all of them were put down as malnutrition and hypothermia. The autopsy report said in regards to Talon's body, the lungs are absent, the heart is absent, the brain is absent. He was only 14 years old. Travala told the New York Times, "She went for good intentions. She thought she was protecting her son and our sister Christine, because she didn't want them to get wrapped up in what the world was coming to in her eyes." As we reflect on the tragic story of the Vance family, it serves as a stark reminder that romanticising life in the wild can not be only misguided but also deadly. The allure of escaping societal norms and living off the grid is tempting, especially when fueled by idealised notions of self-sufficiency and freedom. But the reality is far harsher. The wilderness is unforgiving, and survival requires more than just a desire to disconnect. It demands preparation, skills, and an understanding of the risks involved, none of which the Vance family had. Their journey was one of desperation, hope, and ultimately, fatal consequences. Becky's desire to protect her family led her to make dangerous choices, believing that isolation from the world would shield them from the chaos she saw around her. But in the end, their lack of preparation and knowledge of harsh realities of survival left them vulnerable to the elements. What began as a dream to escape turned into a nightmare which would ultimately claim their lives. As always, this is not an AI channel, I do everything myself, and if you appreciate my work, subscribe, and if you want to go the extra step to support the channel, maybe consider becoming a member. Romanticising this lifestyle without truly understanding the challenges involved can have devastating consequences, as we have seen in the Vance family story, and I can't help but feel absolutely awful for that poor child. Let me know what you think about this case in the comments below, and as always, thank you for watching.